Welcome to our Health and Wellbeing show here on Uxbridge FM. And our guest today is Sharon Dooley, a local massage therapist and yoga teacher. Welcome to the show today, Sharon.
Hello.
Now, first of all, tell us a bit about your background and what got you into doing what you're doing now.
So my background was I was very sporty at school. I left school and started working in the bank, just a break from studies. Years of working in banking before I got reignited my passion for sports massage therapy and teaching yoga. I got drawn into smoking somehow. I hated it when I was a child, but I started smoking when I started work. And about 2006, I watched my brother running the marathon and doing a short run on that day myself in between the tube stations. I was horrified at one, how out of breath I got, and two, how long it took me to recover when I'd have easily done what I did back in school years ago and not thought anything of it. So I decided that in order to quit smoking, I'd start running. And 6 marathons later, I decided that I started working and helping people with how they moved in running, because I got fed up of doing 20-mile runs on my own with people getting injured. And through doing that, I decided I needed to learn more about how the body worked and maybe help them a little bit more with their injuries. So I did a proper sports massage qualification with St Mary's Uni in Twickenham and needed something to go alongside that because I decided I was going to completely change career. So I started learning more about yoga and reigniting a yoga practice that I'd had from sort of around 12, 13. And I'm pretty sure it was doing more yoga that helped me to cope with the intense period of studying alongside a rather stressful city job and a long commute. And I don't know how I fitted it all in, but I did somehow.
So from banking to yoga, it's quite a transition, isn't it?
It is.
And you're based at the Runner's World shop in Eastcote High Street.
I am. I got lucky when I started learning sports massage. I had to build up a number of work hours, and a couple of my friends played hockey at Eastcote Hockey Club, and I had a little chat with them. They had a chat with the club who were happy for me to go along. While I was there, there's a chap that had been doing sports massage therapy at Runner's World in Eastcote for quite a few years, and he doesn't use the room every single day, so he invited me to share the room with him. And equally, very luckily on my part, I got quite a lot of mentoring from him as well, so he really helped me to get going.
And what sort of services do you offer there then?
I offer sports massage therapy, and I will also, as part of the therapy, I'll take advantage of the treadmill in the running shop, and quite often we'll look at how people are moving. But more than me looking at how they're moving, it's showing them how they're moving. And if they're coming to me with an injury, helping them quite often to improve their movement patterns through exercises and awareness, which can allow them to hopefully run for longer without getting injured, and run quite often people end up running quicker as well.
So just by changing their gait or whatever, they can run faster. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it doesn't always happen, but quite often there is that.
It's a nice joining of selling trainers at the same time as using your services as well.
Yeah, it works very well together. Occasionally I will, if I'm quite quiet and the shop is very busy, I will occasionally chip in and help them. But it actually works really well for me to have the guys in the shop have got a phenomenal background in years of running themselves and the knowledge in the shoes that they're selling. I am more looking at how people are moving in the shoes rather than being able to go into the technicalities of what the shoes are doing for them. Whereas my colleagues can really drill down into this is why it might help you, and kind of getting an idea of, because they're doing that day in, day out, they might bring out a shoe I wouldn't even consider putting someone in, and it works.
Is there a danger? There's probably so many people watching or listening who are sort of weekend runners. I'm probably in that category. I just go out and do a quick 4K or whatever at the weekends and nothing else in the week. Should we be doing gentle exercise as well around that?
Yes, ideally 10 or 15 minutes a day or every other day is slightly better than hitting your body with an intense, say 5K once a week, every time we do any kind of movement and exercise, the body has little muscle tears and it then does work to repair that. If you're doing that quite frequently, the body gets quite good at repairing itself with rest periods. But if you go out and give it a big load of repair work to do in one go, that can be where, particularly as we get older, things can tend to get a little bit stuck, and then we end up with pain that lasts a little bit longer than a day or so.
And is there any techniques for warming up and warming down?
Yeah, I tended to, when I came back to running and I was doing my first marathon, it was probably by accident, more of a laziness thing. I used to park at Pembroke Lodge in Richmond Park and walk downhill for a mile to a flat part and then start running slowly, partly because, again, I'd come back to it from quitting smoking, and the kind of running I did at school, I learnt quite quickly that wasn't going to get me around a marathon. So I'd start slowly, and then as I got fitter, I was able to build up. And again, I didn't fancy running up the hill on the way back to the car, so I would walk back to the car, which turned out to be quite a nice cool down. And if it was a hot day, I might do some stretching in the park, but on a colder day, I tend to drive home and do my stretching at home.
So we're in the season for marathon training now, aren't we? I mean, would you recommend people mix up a massage perhaps within their training?
Yes, what I tend to say, if somebody's never ever run a marathon before and they're completely new to it, is one, have a look at some training plans. There's lots of local clubs around the area which can be really useful for them to join, and it's nicer to run longer distances with people. Making sure you've got the right shoes is a good starting point, and it is worth investing in a decent pair of running shoes for running a marathon. What I tended to do, which worked quite well for me, and as a minimum have a massage once every 4 to 6 weeks just to address any areas of tension. Around, if you're doing an April marathon, March tends to be quite high mileage, and I would generally do a long run up to 20 miles at the weekend and have a massage midweek, which then helped me recover from the weekend's run and prepare me for the next onslaught following weekend.
And can yoga help with running? I mean, strengthening your body in other parts as well?
It's definitely helped me personally in terms of allowing me to keep my range of movement. So where running will get, certain muscles will get quite tight, by taking my body in a slower fashion. So I'm listening to my breath when I'm practicing yoga, and it's helping to calm my nervous system down. But equally, holding the yoga postures requires a certain amount of strength, and I'm pretty sure it helped me to hold my posture in my marathons, and it definitely helps me at the end of a 400 when everything wants to fall apart.
So you've now run 6 marathons, which is like beyond my even comprehension. And obviously you've improved your lung capacity from when you were a smoker.
Yes.
But you're sprinting now.
I am. So I started sprinting more towards the end of 2011. I used to train at St Mary's Track in Twickenham as part of my marathon training. I got drawn into that, and the lady that was running the ladies team at Twickenham kept nagging me to join the track things because they were always looking for more distance runners. So I sort of eventually gave in one time, and actually the first match they ever did that I joined was Harrow, which is where I now tend to do my training. And I did a 3K, didn't know what to do on a 3K, sat at the back of the B string and thought, it's a bit boring here. I found myself at the front, and then I did a 1500 and decided, because I'd won the 3K, I needed to win that too, but I had to sprint towards the end. So they asked me to do a 200 for them. And then they looked at me and said, actually, I think you'd be more geared for 2s and 4s. And eventually, kind of, that's where I've ended up going down to 200, 400 metres, and haven't run anything longer than that in about 3 or 4 years.
So what's your times?
Everyone always wants to ask that. My best time was in the 400. The best time I've ever done was 65.8, which was in Lyon at World Masters in, I think it was 2015. I've done the best I've done in a 2 is 28.4 recently, and the 100 is 14.3. I've still got room to improve on all of those.
Wow.
And I'm quite fortunate. I've got a very good running coach that he works alongside me at the shop. He's there on a Thursday and then Saturday afternoons. So he's pretty tough and nags at me to do a bit more. But in between, after doing the 65.8, I came back all fired up to do really well the following year and had a bit of a fall and knocked myself out. So it knocked me back a little bit.
Okay.
All my knowledge of recovering from injuries and all the yoga helped me to recover and get back to it. But yeah, it sort of slowed me down for a bit.
If someone's thinking of doing a marathon, I mean, probably now, not this year, but in the future years, you'd suggest just don't start with doing a whole marathon, perhaps just build up, do some halves maybe.
Yeah, I came back to it. I'd done years of horse riding. I'd always loved horses. I did athletics at school, ridden horses for years. So I had pretty strong legs coming back into it, but my upper body was really, really weak and puny. And I decided in 2006, I'm going to run the marathon next year. Went and got my shoes and gradually built up, adding a mile on per week and into my long run. By the October, I'd run 16 miles. On the day of the marathon itself, I realised halfway round that maybe I wasn't really strong enough yet. And I spent the second half of the marathon working out what I needed to do for my next one, because the time I thought I'd do it in and the time I did it in just didn't fit very well. So I went away, got a lot stronger, joined a running club, learnt lots more and knocked an hour off the second marathon that I did, which in hindsight, I would say to people, if you've never ever run a marathon and you haven't done sport for a while, give yourself 2 years. So spend a year building up strength, build up to half marathons. And then the following year, you'll be in a very good place to enjoy the marathon a lot more.
Mm. And training-wise, obviously, you end up training in winter, don't you? Which isn't perhaps ideal, but well, for the London Marathon, you do anyway.
It's not great in terms of you're going out when it's dark, it's cold, it's wet, it can be icy, and you learn to go out in whatever conditions you're in. The clothes that you wear will make a difference. So layers are a really key secret, and equally technical clothing rather than cotton. Once cotton gets wet and you're running a long way in something that's sopping wet, you're not in a good place.
No.
My biggest problem in the first marathon I ever did was 2007. We'd had a fairly cold winter, and 2 weeks before the marathon, we had this heat wave. And I used to get really hot within a mile to begin with. But on the day of the marathon, I was there in shorts and a T-shirt at the start thinking, oh no, I've got 26 miles of heat. The first 3 miles, all the water stations were out of water because of the heat. I thankfully had a bottle of water with me, so I was fine. But there were a lot of people really, really struggling, because you generally, with marathon training, you're pretty much training yourself to drink about every 3 or 4 miles anyway. So you're not taking on lots and lots of water. But psychologically, on a really hot day when there's no water around, that was pretty tough.
Right, so let's have a look at some websites. There's a few that we can recommend. The Runner's World website, which is runnersworld.limited.uk. There's information there on yourself and your colleague Gary. And then your website, yogaandsports.co.uk. A chance to book an appointment with you at the Runner's World shop. And then thebodystudio.info, which is your yoga teaching.
Yes. So I've got a group class at the Body Studio on a Tuesday morning at 9:30, which is quite nice.
So anybody wanting to improve their gait, improve their running style, do book a session at the Runner's World shop with Sharon. Can recommend that. Anything else you wanted to add? I know there's one more service that you do offer, isn't it? Which is you can go along to companies and look at their posture on their office chairs and recommend things and tips for them.
Yeah, so I did a desk assessment course, which is just really looking at how somebody's set their desk up and whether or not it's going to help or hinder them throughout the day in terms of encourage them to have a good posture while they're sat at their desk. It tends to be smaller companies, because the larger companies tend to have in-house desk assessments.
So what it's things like phones and the monitors and whatever.
Yeah, the phones, the monitors, where the keyboard is, the mouse, and equally encouraging people to move every 15 or 20 minutes. And that doesn't mean having to go for a walk around the block. It's literally just changing the position they're in. So it might just be a little bit of exercises or a little bit of twisting that nobody else necessarily has to see you doing, but changing your posture from one position to the next is really nice for allowing certain muscles that have holding you in one position to have a little break. Otherwise, throughout the day, you tend to get a bit stuck in certain postures.
And probably not moving down outside for a cigarette. That would be a bad idea.
That would definitely be a bad idea.
I did see news recently of a boss who decided to offer extra holiday to the non-smokers. He'd added it up over the year and worked out that the smokers cost him 4 days holiday per person. So he'd said to the non-smokers, I'm going to give you 4 days extra holiday a year, which actually meant that the smokers then mostly quit.
Excellent. That's good motivation.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for coming in today to Uxbridge FM, Sharon. It's been interesting learning all about running and what we can do to improve our posture and our gait. And we should all head down to the Runners World Shop, book a session with you. The running machine with the video machine sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's very useful. It's quite scary a lot of the time when people see how they're moving. It's quite powerful to realise, oh, that's what I do.
Yeah. I'll pop down there myself, I think, for some new trainers. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.